that they can like that Durant can even do. That's the thing. Is like it's just the Celtics are just that good defensively. It's hard. It's got to be hard to watch knowing that Durant's that good and that he can't do his stuff. But he just there's no shot he can't. Like they're sending everything at him, and they know everything he's gonna do too. Like he does that. He loves that little hesitation spin, and you could tell game one he was gonna try to get to it in that mid range every time, and he was never gonna be allowed to do it. And I feel like he's still stuck trying to do. Like he does that move so many times. It's just like habit, and the Celtics there's all over everything that he's doing. Honestly,
all over everything. And I feel like the more I look at the game, dude, like the more crazy it gets. Like I was just watching clips on Twitter, and the fact that Kyrie and KD literally went a combined 1 of 17 in the second half of that game. Like even watching it, like that still is baffling. Like I watched the entire game and I still wouldn't have guessed that their shooting was that bad in the second half. KD 0 for 10. Like it was bad. And you were right about, us just being up in KD every time he touches. There's just a second defender waiting on his hip on his very first move. And so unless he catches and shoots right over, which he can get away with, he's losing the ball more often than not, which is crazy.
When he's forcing it. Like that's the part of it too, is that he's still, and I mean, I guess in a way they kind of need him to, but it's so strange to see play out. But I don't know what the answer is, because this defense that's just how good they are. Like that's just what they've been doing all year to teams, and I feel like everybody was kind of like, okay, but like it's Kevin Durant. Like, come on, like, are you guys really get, like that was really like, I feel like the thought going into the series, right? Like I feel like that was kind of the talk, was like, yeah, this is like nice story. The Celtics have been awesome the second half, but let's see what they do against Kevin Durant. And it's worked. Like everything that they've done has worked. I don't know. Do you have anything? So you want to intro us here as we're talking right into giving your praise to your Boston Celtics, get us rolling here, and we'll give our finishing thoughts on this series.
I have to be excited that we are starting the show even before the intro with a little Boston Brooklyn talk. But welcome to Happy Hour Hoops, guys. Another episode of the Triple H podcast, all things NBA, from myself, Donovan Holden, and Jake Micah today. We're just going through all the series today, talking about, what we think of each team, where the series are at. Obviously, starting with Brooklyn here, 2-0 Boston in the Celtics Nets series. The homestand for Boston is over. Headed to Brooklyn for games 3 and 4.
Yep.
And the biggest piece of news in this series, of course, aside from the win last night by the Boston Celtics, is that Ben Simmons is reportedly set to play Monday for game 4.
Yeah, and that could be huge. I think that what the oldest saying in the book is that the series doesn't really start till the road team wins, right? So game 3, huge. I think that, I don't know, has the line come out early for that? I'm sure that Brooklyn's favored.
I saw plus 3.5 for the Celtics this morning. So yeah,
right. That sounds about right.
Favorites.
I don't think Simmons changes that really that much, because we just have no idea what the fuck we're going to see from this guy. But realistically,
I'm
need.
sorry, I saw the line for Saturday's game. I haven't seen it from Monday. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, sorry about that. That was me mixing that up. But regardless, the trajectory that he would change is just defensively. They need. We've talked about it for all year that they've needed a Ben Simmons size type defender in that lineup. One of the stats I saw today though was Kyrie Irving, I think on 68 contested shot or 30 or more contested shots in the series so far that he's had, the Celtics are shooting 68%. So they're going after the Celtics are going after the Nets guards. I'm sure those stats look about the same for, Dragic and Patty Mills and those guys. Like, they're not great plus defenders either. And just the size of the Celtics to get to their shots, I mean, they just have a size advantage everywhere. And it's kind of crazy to see the length that they still have, and Robert Williams isn't even on the court yet. Like, this defense has been doing all this shit to KD, and it's like, yeah, and the guy that would probably be doing the most damage hasn't even touched the floor yet. That's the scariest part for Brooklyn. Like, you can answer with Simmons, but if they just answer with Robert Williams, I think that's a win for Boston.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, we're still switching everything, and Daniel Tice is a part of that. And no knock at Tice. Tice is known for his defense, but he can get burned on the perimeter easily. And you put Robert Williams in instead of him. Rob Williams is actually one of the better perimeter defenders for a big man in the NBA. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild. I do want to give credit to Tice, but I can't even imagine if it was Rob out there right now.
It would be much different. So Saturday, game 3 in Brooklyn. It's gonna be a hell of a theater in Barclays for that one. It's been a great series so far. I mean, both games delivered through and through. So game 3, I'm sure, will be no less. So let's get into the other side of the bracket. Phoenix and New Orleans tied at 1. Obviously, the biggest news of this is today coming out. Devin Booker missing at least 2 to 3 weeks with his hamstring strain. Once I saw that it was a hamstring, I was just like, bad news right away. Like, with a hamstring, even when he's better in 3 weeks, it's going to be lingering no matter what throughout the rest of this playoff run. Like, this is an injury that you need to sit down for a good amount of time. Honestly, like most guys, in the regular season, you think a hamstring strain, you're thinking like 6 weeks at least, right? Like in the NBA, like 6-8 weeks, probably at least 4 to 6 weeks. So 2 to 3 I feel like is asking a lot. Are you worried about Phoenix in this series? Because the way New Orleans looked, I mean, it just feels like this playoffs, everybody is so like, and it's been the story throughout the year, but it's manifesting itself in the playoffs, that these teams are so close and the West and East are so competitive. You look at a team like New Orleans, they've got a CJ McCollum and a Brandon Ingram, 2 guys who can be the best player on the floor against Phoenix, especially now. Like, I mean, it's an aging Chris Paul against one of those 2 guys. You might take the other 2 guys. And we're going back to New Orleans, which is not, like a terrifying home court advantage, but it's a home court advantage nonetheless. It's a East Coast for a Coast, or not East Coast, but kind of an East Coast swing for a West Coast team in the Western Conference, as much as you can get. It's going to be an interesting game 3. What are your thoughts about what Phoenix looks like without Booker now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess pressure's just on Chris Paul even more so than it was, heading into these playoffs and heading into this season in general. Like, yeah, you had 60 wins. Booker carried you for a while you were out. Your turn. You made the finals last year, came up short. Everyone has this narrative that they're like running out of their mouth that Chris Paul can't, Chris Paul flops in the playoffs. He can't finish series, this and that. I mean, if Phoenix gets in trouble in this series, it's a real bad look for the Suns, if you ask me, and Chris Paul. But I think you're right. I mean, on paper, I think the Pelicans could put up a fight in this series. I think that the Suns should be able to just run away with this and, finish the series. I think, Nola getting a dub the other night is kind of crazy that this 1-8 matchup is even at 1-1 right now, headed back home to New Orleans, like you said. But I mean, if Phoenix is that good and they're that well coached, like we've seen the last 2 seasons, that they should be able to figure this out without Booker. But I'm worried. I think they get out of this series just fine. But like you said, that hamstring's going to linger, especially if he comes back in just 2 short weeks. So, who's to say that they go 6 with New Orleans in this series, and then they're tired and they don't have Devin Booker at the start of next series, and they're going to have a way better opponent. I'll tell you that right now.
Listen, both my futures on this Western Conference are on the Warriors. I picked the Warriors. I have a future on the Warriors. I've got a future on the Grizzlies. We'll get to them in a second. So this is great news for me in that regard. I was already kind of down-ish on Phoenix being like a surefire title contender. This just puts them in the crowd, though. Like that's the thing, is Booker set them apart, and that dude was like, he was dapping up babies, bro. He was feeling himself on another level. He was really in the top. Like, he's about to get named reportedly as an all NBA first teamer. Like this guy is literally at the top of his craft right now. So for him to go out this way in this historic season, it's so sad to see. And maybe it's the moment. Like I'm always looking for obviously the best story out of this. Is the best story out of this possible? Is it Chris Paul just piecing it together to survive at least 2 rounds until they can get Booker back for like a huge series against Golden State or Memphis or Minnesota or whoever that's going to be in the Western Conference Final? Because next round, I think the next round for the West, if it's a Luka matchup with a guy who's coming back, we haven't seen Luka on the floor or the Jazz. Like I feel like that's still a matchup we would look at favorably for Phoenix, even without Devin Booker. Even with Luka, I still feel like we might look at it more favorably for Phoenix. So it's not like their matchups really end up like they're on the right side of the bracket for sure, avoiding that they don't have to play either Golden State or Memphis. But getting past the Pelicans, I think, is going to be tricky. I think Ingram has been that dude for a while. So to see him finally on a playoff stage being able to show it out is really just enjoyable.
Especially if they're close games here, because in McCollum and Ingram, the Pelicans have 2 closers. They can go shot for shot trying to make game winners at the end of a game. Chris Paul is probably going to have to do that by himself. I don't think anyone outside of Chris Paul can necessarily do that on the Suns without Devin Booker. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. They're going to have to fight. I think they make it out of the first round, but it did just get a whole lot more interesting.
There's always a wrinkle. And this is definitely one of them for the NBA playoffs. Let's go to the other 1 seed on the East side. Miami up 2-0 on Atlanta. I don't have much to say. I mean, the Jimmy Butler game was not, I guess, and didn't know he had that in him, but the fact that they've just been, I think the interviews after were really telling that they've just been telling him to shoot. His whole team has just been like, bro, you got to shoot more. You got to shoot more threes. Like, we need you to score or whatever. And I guess Jimmy just decided to wait to the playoffs to really unleash that, which smart move. They were already the 1 seed, didn't need to use it until now. And now he's got that, arrow in his quiver. Does that like kind of change the trajectory of what you think about this Miami team? Or is this just beating up on Atlanta, who without Clint Capella, they're really just getting rim run, man. Like Miami is just shoving the ball into the paint and Atlanta really doesn't have an answer.
Yeah. I don't know if it changes my opinion on Miami as a whole. I mean, they look damn good. I knew Jimmy was capable of what he did the other night, but I did think that the Hawks were going to have a bounce back game in game 2 because of how poorly they played in game 1, but they just don't have it against this Miami team. The Miami Heat fly around against them on the defensive end. They bother Trey every time up the court. And yeah, you mentioned not having Capella, and then John Collins, I don't know if he was rushed back or what, even though obviously he was out for a while. John Collins does not look like himself. And they're just playing a really, really, really complacent offense where they swing the ball a couple times around the perimeter, and then it ends with a Gallo, a Bogey, or a Trae Young 3. Even Kevin Huerter, like they're just settling for the outside shot so much. Yeah. I mean, not really playing through their bigs because they don't have many to play through. And then on top of all that, the Miami's defense is suffocating, and they have a bunch of shot makers. So Miami, super impressive in this series. I kind of expected it to, because this is also a 1-8 matchup. So, I mean, this is unlike what's happening out west. This is kind of what's supposed to happen, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I'm excited to see Miami in the next round against, whoever they play against, because it's going to be, again, someone a little more challenging than an 8 seed.
Well, most likely it's going to be the Philadelphia 76ers, which we'll get into in a second, because the next series we want to get into is the most surprising series of the first round. I would say Milwaukee and Chicago tied at 1. We warned this before last week. They're all division rivalries in the East, and you never know when it comes to that. It doesn't really like make as much of a difference in basketball. It seems like as if we're talking about like an AFC East game or something like that. Like you like there's more chaos in like football, divisional, probably a little bit more in baseball. Basketball, it's kind of like divisions don't really, like they've told us the divisions don't really matter except for scheduling purposes. This is one that's held up throughout time. I mean, these teams separated by an hour and a half right along. And I think that is part of this, but I also just think we kind of underestimated how good Chicago is just as like a group, and just Billy Donovan getting groups to overachieve, especially in the playoffs. Remember when that OKC team took the Rockets to 7 games? Like none of us thought, like even when they were the 5 seed and doing as well as they were doing, none of us expected. We were all like, okay, Rockets gonna walk over, like do that, and that they could have been moving on and eliminated James Harden and the Rockets in one of their peak. I think Billy Donovan's a great in-game coach, a great coach at adjustments, especially in a playoff setting. And what we know about Mike Budenholzer is that is not his strength. That's what we've talked about has been his like biggest deterrent the last couple of years in the playoffs. They won the finals last year kind of in spite of Budenholzer. Like if Budenholzer didn't win the finals with the Bucks, he might have been gone. Like he could have been fired last year. This is like True. So this is where I think that we've seen that in both these games. It's been the coaching matchup, and then you have smart players like DeRozan and LaVine. Like DeRozan shot horribly game 1, and they still only lost by like 6. So last night was no surprise, and even Milwaukee battling back, they got it to within 3. They got the stop that they needed to against Chicago at the end, and then it was just pure will and determination. DeRozan gets the ball and just a tough shot, that just a tough dagger layup to get into. Somehow not a foul against Giannis, even though Giannis just body checked him into the ground, tried through the arena. But now we're tied 1-1, man. We're tied 1-1 in this series, and I really feel like it could go any way at this point. Especially, I'm burying the lead here with a Chris Middleton sprained MCL, which who knows? I mean, like we're talking about Booker's out for a while. Sprained MCL is at least a month. So this is a team without Chris Middleton for the foreseeable future. That changes I picked them to make the finals. That kind of changes my trajectory for them a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, I saw Middleton out at least 3 to 4 weeks, and I agree. I think it's probably going to be longer than that. And
3 weeks for a sprained MCL would be crazy.
Yeah, and that might not matter because Chicago could pull this off without Middleton. They're going back to Chicago now. And
dude, Friday, I can't even imagine what that place is going to be like tomorrow night. Like the first home Bulls playoff game in how long, we should have this. I should have had this stat up, but it's got to be, 6 steps since Jimmy Butler, like 2015, 2016. Like that's probably the last Bulls home playoff game. And yeah, to have it, that is going to be hostile. To have it be Milwaukee, like it's going to be a mix of crowd, but it's definitely going to just be a loud Chicago angry crowd. And I don't think that they thought they'd be tied going back, like
no, I definitely did. I thought this was going to be a sweep. I said it on here. And all the broadcast could talk about last night, and even in game 1 I was hearing it a little too, is like, imagine if this Bulls team had Lonzo Ball. Well, the playing field's even now. They don't have Middleton. Yeah. It's time for Chicago to pounce. They have to take advantage of this opportunity.
I love Lonzo, and defensively, I think he would help immensely in this series, in a potential next series against Boston or Brooklyn. But Ayo and Kobe White are just as effective as guards right now, and they're playing confident.
They're playing great.
But the thing is, they're not putting the ball. They're just putting the ball in DeRozan and LaVine's hands. Like those two are the point guards. Like it's either DeRozan coming up and making the decision, or LaVine coming up and making the decision. And that's the move. Like that's why Billy Donovan is so smart, because he's like, this is playoff time. Like I think they both had almost 20 shots tonight, which they're off. Clearly they're what the engine is going. And if, like I said earlier, if DeRozan doesn't have a slow game in game 1, they could be up 2-0 right now. Like this is they were that close there. I think I want to see how many shots they both took collectively. DeRozan took 31 last night. LaVine did not take as many last night, actually. He only took 13. Vucevic took 18 though. He's the other part of the equation. He had 24 points, 13 rebounds. I don't think people thought he was going to be able to be as effective against that huge Portis, Giannis, Lopez front. He's been cooking too. It's just not how I thought this series. Like all the other series have played out kind of in a way that I would anticipate. This is the one that it just hasn't. I think it's coaching.
Did you see what Patrick Williams said about Giannis?
Oh God, no, I didn't actually.
He said he puts his pants on the same way that I do every morning. he said yes, he's really good, but he's not God.
I love that. I love that. That's the
You
kind of
gotta
energy
love
you
that from
need,
the Rook.
you know? Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
But yeah, I mean, just a closing thought here, man. This to me, it seems like, especially in the playoffs, maybe Giannis like gets figured out for like spurts. And then I don't know if it's something that he does or if teams get worn out by figuring him out, but it
Mhm.
seems like he gets figured out by a little bit or game planned for perfectly. And then he comes in like a wrecking ball and he just does not follow the rules of your defense and starts dunking through people and just doing whatever he wants like he did last year in the NBA finals. So we'll see how long that the Chicago Bulls seem to have this Giannis and Milwaukee Bucks offense figured out, but it could get ugly. So hopefully Chicago can build on this. Middleton's down now. The playing field's a little more even. It's going to be interesting. It's definitely clearly not going to be a sweep anymore, and it may not even be a 5 games anymore. We could be looking at a 7-game series in front of us.
Yeah, I'll be sharing some stuff there from Sunday. Well, I'll be at Game 4, which has now become.
Yes.
I love Game 4s. I think we've talked about this in the past. Game 4 is like the best game. Always either it's a sweep game or it's the swing game, a 2-1, where really like the direction of the end of the series is decided. And this is the last way I expected this Game 4 to come out. I was thinking like maybe they're battling for their lives, or maybe they sneak the one in Game 3, and then Milwaukee is gonna just blow them out Game 4. I don't think that's going to be the case here any longer. I think that we're going to have a pretty interesting whole series there between these two Midwest teams. Let's finish up the East here. Philly up 3-0 on Toronto. I made a mean tweet about James Harden earlier and compared him to other NBA role players.
Yeah,
but he really is, bro. Like in this offense right now, it's Maxey and it's Embiid, and that is the perfect way to win with James Harden on your team in the playoffs, is make him the third option. Who would have thought?
Yeah, I mean that's essentially kind of what he was. Even though he was the playmaker in Brooklyn when he was there, he was, I would argue, the third option scoring wise. And that's kind of the role he's in now. So I mean, I don't know. Do we say hats off to Doc Rivers and this Philadelphia coaching staff for kind of instilling that into the offense? And it also kind of just happened gradually with Maxey too, right?
Yeah.
Like there were spurt games throughout the regular season where we're like, wow, this kid can ball. And then it, like, game 1 of the playoffs, he had 38. And now all of a sudden they continue to play that way with the ball touching Maxey's hands a lot and Harden, playing as the playmaker. And they find themselves up 3-0. The Raptors blew that game last night because I didn't think Philly played well down the stretch at all. And I think Embiid bailed them out with that nasty fadeaway 3.
I mean, let's give a second to that shot because holy shit,
man.
Bro.
Yeah.
Oh my God. In the moment watching it for the first time,
Embiid's
I was like
that.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you know what? He was talking about, I read an Athletic article. They asked him right about the Kawhi shot because it's the same side of the court. It's the other side. Hitting a shot like that against a team where he, you love those like comeback moments like that. And he really got like a perfect one last night. And it's obviously not the same situation to go to the Eastern Conference Finals or whatever, but it's still got to be cathartic in a way.
Oh, yeah. And it's definitely meaningful to him. And I saw him, Embiid coming off the court last night was talking a whole bunch of shit to Drake. And I'm sure that must have felt good for him. But yeah, I mean, I didn't really think about it until last night seeing them play in Toronto, but this is a revenge game for him. I don't know if we lost Jake or if he took himself out of the broadcast, but here he is. And no, I thought it was, I didn't realize it was a revenge game for Embiid until last night watching him play in Toronto because of obviously the series that you mentioned with Kawhi hitting that shot. And he's probably thinking in the back of his head, yeah, this is a revenge series for me, but there's no Lowry on the other side. There's no Kawhi Leonard on the other side. This is a dumbed down Raptors team, if we're comparing the two. And he's thinking to himself, I'm the MVP of the league. I think it's probably going to be Jokic, but I'm sure he believes he's the MVP. And he's been playing like it this series. And even he had a quiet game one, but 33-13 last night, that's legit. And Embiid stepped up.
Yeah, and let's just pour one out somehow for the Toronto Raptors because they gave their best shot last night, and just it's got to be heartbreaking to watch that. But yeah, we'll
everyone
see.
Everyone kind of thought that the Raptors were going to be upset city over Philly too, and that's just.
I did. I picked them. I've got a series bet on them right now. Dog. It's not looking good. I should double down on it right now. So
Yeah,
Middleton left
sore
to miss
subject.
games 3 and 4 at least with a Shams tweet just right now. So no Middleton in Chicago. That'll be interesting. All right, let's get to the games tonight. We've got about 15 minutes left here before Crossing Swords pregame. So Memphis, Minnesota leads us off. They're tied at 1-1. Obviously, Minnesota jumped out to that series lead, took the league by storm. Anthony Edwards was the darling of the NBA for about 2 days. And then Memphis was like, yeah, all right. And just took care of business in game 2. Yeah. But we're here in Minnesota for their first. We saw how they were for their play-in game, their first playoff action, hosting Ja Morant and the Grizzlies. They are 2.5-point underdogs. What is your read going into this and just about the series in general?
So going into it, and then even after game 1, this was a series that I was most excited for outside of the Brooklyn-Boston series, obviously. After watching game 2, dude, it is so hard to just form an opinion on either of these two teams. Like the way that game 2 started, it was like all defense, a lot of sloppy play, a lot of fouls, a lot of, excitement and energy too coming from both sides, but it was like these teams just are going to beat each other up this series. Yeah. I think we're looking at a 7-game series. Unless, I was impressed at times by the Memphis Grizzlies, but I still haven't seen them play like how they did in the regular season in these first 2 games of the playoffs. I have not seen that yet. I've seen like half of quarters of it. I've seen flashes. Like Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson really started the game well in game 2. But as a whole, I haven't really seen this Memphis group click. And like you said, it's gonna be hard to get them to click on the road now. You're playing in a city in Minnesota that hasn't seen playoff basketball in years. They went bonkers for a play-in game, and now they have the 2 seed, the Memphis Grizzlies, tied at 1-1 coming to their home court. And we haven't seen the best of D'Angelo Russell yet. So
nope.
It could be scary hours for Memphis, but like I said at the beginning of this rant, I have no idea what to expect. So Memphis could also come in here and just bully the Timberwolves.
Yeah, I got no read on this game tonight at all. I think this is it. It could be it could be their classic game of this series. Both of these teams are going to come out with a vengeance, and like you said, Memphis hasn't looked like that dominant team. I think that what Anthony Edwards kind of said the other day after game 1 is exactly what a lot of people are thinking. We feel like we match up 1 through 15. He was talking about the PR people, the janitors, the coaches, everybody matches up across the organization. And that's something that Minnesota believes. Like regular season success doesn't mean anything. You're Memphis. This Memphis team hasn't earned shit. They're one of the youngest teams in the league. So is Minnesota. They're just looking at them as contemporaries. They're like, this team hasn't earned more than us. They don't belong here more than us. So I really feel like Minnesota just looks at the series like we are equal with them. We are on the same par with this team. And it showed on the court. I think the one big thing to watch out is Karl-Anthony Towns now in his 3 postseason games has had 2 subpar performances. That's going to come back to bite them at some point.
Foul trouble in all of them.
And foul trouble. And Memphis has pretty much not taken Steven Adams out, but Steven Adams is not really a factor to the starting lineup anymore. They ran a lot of small ball in game 2 after Adams got fouls early. And that's just causing hell for Karl-Anthony Towns to have to deal with a longer, more athletic Jaren Jackson. This is my worry about Towns. I feel like in series teams can find ways to get into his head. But like you said, we haven't seen the good Russell game yet. I think Edwards had the good game, the great game 1, obviously. So naturally we should expect it to come down in game 2 a little bit for a young guy like that. But now you're home, first game, like we said, first game back at home. as a playoff game. Role players shoot better at home, those types of things. This is an iffy spot for Memphis. They really need to come in locked in right away.
Yeah, I think they do too. And it is weird, the Karl Anthony Towns thing, when you think of how he's been struggling, and then you do look at how they have been playing sort of small ball, but they've just been throwing Tillman, Brandon Clark, Jaren Jackson, and then when Steve Adams does get in there, he's kind of just expending fouls on Cat.
Yeah,
and it's worked to a degree. I mean, they've definitely slowed down Cat, but like I said, 1-1 series. We're back in Minnesota. We'll see.
Yep. We will see. So let's get into the other games quick tonight. Utah, Dallas. No Luka again tonight. First game in Utah. This is this has to be a Utah win. Like, if we're gonna take the Jazz seriously, they need to just take care of business. With Dallas got the split that they wanted at home without their star. But now going back to Utah, to the elevation, that's going to be a great home crowd advantage tonight. They really just need to take advantage and win these two games, especially if Luka's not playing game 3 or 4. This is their series to lose. Obviously, they're 8-point favorites tonight. Do you see a way that Dallas sneaks one here in game 3?
I mean, they're going to be at home, right?
We're in Utah.
Yeah, we're in Utah. Okay, so I don't know, dude. I would have said that they can't, but the way Brunson played,
that's true.
Last game, it leads me to believe that
if they can shoot 50% from 3, like, they can do anything. That's one thing for sure. Like, if they're gonna shoot like that, sky's the limit.
I feel like, and the thing is, I feel like we all thought Dinwiddie was capable of the game that Brunson had last game, but none of us thought that Brunson could do that.
Yeah.
The scary thing is that Dinwiddie can turn around and have a Brunson game for himself, because he's done it most of his career on multiple different teams. So I don't know. I'm not counting out Dallas. Like, I wouldn't chalk up Utah as a definite win tonight, but I think it's a must win if you're looking in at that team in that locker room. But one thing I do want to say about the Mavs is I'm sure Jason Kidd and Luka alike are both just extremely happy with Jalen Brunson. Like, Jason Kidd must be dapping him up. Like, we don't have to rush Luka back because of you, essentially.
For sure.
So, I mean, what a cushion it was. Which, it sounds crazy because, you know, you had 2 games in your home court, and so I wouldn't call it grabbing a win there. But yeah. I mean, we're grabbing a win because you don't have, you know, essentially one of the top 5 best players on your team who you're supposed to have.
Yeah.
You grab one, and you know, if you want to call it that, and now you have an even series, gives you a little bit of cushion. I would be shocked if we don't see Luka back for game 4, but
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if Utah gets a big dub tonight. They should.
I think Utah is going to go. I'm with the spread. I'm going with them running away with this. But yeah, Luka coming back even at 70% capacity, I think changes this series a lot. I think Dallas through and through is the better team, and that's why it sucks that Luka is not playing. Like, just, oh man, the last day of the season the kid gets hurt, like, after this amazing second half run. It's just tough to see. So if they really can pull some magic out tonight and keep pace ahead of Utah, it would be something to try to get him back in. So let's finish up with Meerkats Nuggets on the ropes at home against the new death lineup and the Golden State Warriors. I mean, who would have thought Jordan Poole was just Steph Curry 2.0 when it comes to playoff time? I'm definitely not me. I mean, I thought obviously very highly of Poole, but just he's looks like he's on the same plane as Tyrese Maxey, like a guy that we thought highly of but didn't know what he would do when it comes postseason time, and they've stepped it up. That's when you find out about these guys. Draymond is a force, though. Draymond has been peak Draymond Green this series. He's bullying Jokic defensively. I think he has like 20 assists in the first 2 games or something like that. Something ridiculous. Steph is not even starting. He's coming off the bench right now, and this team looks fully formed. I really think this is just a bad matchup for Denver as much as anything else. They're just this is such a great defensive team in the Golden State. They're giving Jokic so many problems. But being home for Denver, like we said, role players shoot better at home. This is elevation is definitely a thing when it comes to going to Denver. They have a great home court advantage, but Jokic needs to play better, man. Like Jokic needs to have some answers for this team to answer. Have some answers for this team to be able to respond in this series. He has no answers though for Draymond. I've just been very impressed by Draymond and very impressed by the Warriors core looking like a championship core again, but he's the key to it. Like it's not Steph. Steph is going to do his normal things. Poole, I think between Steph, Poole, and Clay, I think you have almost a whole collective of Splash Brother power, like of old Splash Brother power. You add in Poole, you take away a little bit from Steph and Clay. I think they all kind of reach that magnitude. And then the young wings. I mean, it's such a adaptable roster. It's a nightmare for Denver, who does not have an adaptable roster.
Yeah, did you see the nickname for Golden State starting five or that death lineup?
DEFCON 2. I saw that. I saw a couple other things. What is it?
The best one I've seen is PTSD. Poole, Thompson, Steph,
Draymond.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I just blanked on who the D was. Draymond Green. Yeah. But
that's a good one.
I mean, it's true. Like, and if they that sucks. And then they have Wiggins though. Like that's crazy to think about. Like they have a five, or they have a group of guys,
or Iguodala, former Finals MVP, or a young stud in Jonathan Kuminga who can just jump out of the gym at any moment. Like they've got the options.
Kind of unfair, man.
Otto Porter, if they need to go big, Looney is there. Like. They've got all it was really like Draymond was going to unlock it. Like if he could play small ball big against the best bigs in the league, this team was going to be different. And he's playing against the literal MVP and they're doing fine. So, and you look at their next matchup, they would have either Memphis or Minnesota. Yo, Draymond's going to bully Jaren Jackson or Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't care how well they've been playing so far. Like going to bully them.
Oh, he would get in Karl-Anthony Towns' head so quick, bro.
All right, well, let's wrap it up there. We got that was a quick 5 minutes. We got 5 minutes or less. We're under 40 minutes on this. We got through every single series.
We did it.
It's been a fun first round so far. We got a fun slate of games tonight. Lock in with us here at Happy Hour Hoops. Follow us at Happy Hour Hoops 1. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. Check out Degenerate Danger Zone, where we'll keep coming with picks. I haven't hit one of these parlays yet. Maybe today is the day. I don't know yet. I haven't even thought of what it's possibly going to be yet. Probably something, I don't know. Maybe we'll do something. I don't know. I'm not going to try to figure it out right now. My laptop's going to die, so we need to wrap this up quick. So for Donovan Holden, Jake Micah, enjoy the games. Stay hydrated. Have a great night, folks.